For the first time in history, knowledge is far, far, far more accessible. What it means is things will evolve. Everyone can now be a software engineer or can do code. Low level, repeatable tasks can be automated, and that's expected with such massive shift in technology.
There's less and less demand on task-based roles. Like somebody, an admin assistant, for example, or somebody to take notes during a meeting. We need more people who know how to use AI tools that are easily available to get work done faster.
It's not enough now that you know how to write the code, but you should know how to work with AI agents. Sometimes I think about it, it's a little bit black box right now, right? It's kind of weird because it's black box, and data engineers, they're used to like really looking at the code. Oh, what is this? The join and everything.
We're kind of in a period of evolution. What do you think would separate professionals who are just merely surviving to actually thriving?
Welcome back to another learning episode here in Lumpia Bytes. So we are back with our part 2 of our conversation with Emil. If you haven't watched our previous episode yet, we talk about his career journey, solutions engineering, the master's degree question, and what it takes to build the global mindset as a tech professional. So don't miss that one. Today, we're getting into the heavier stuff. We're talking about what AI is really doing to data and tech careers, which skills are becoming obsolete and which ones you need to be building right now, and how hiring has completely changed. We're also going to learn about graph technology and why it matters more than ever in the AI world. So this one is really packed, and let's get into it. Emil, welcome back. How significantly do you think AI is going to change what data engineers or solutions engineers do? Are we talking about minor changes, you think, or a major shift on how a data engineer or solutions engineer operate?
I think it will be a significant shift in not just on those roles, actually, in all of our roles, data scientists, AI engineer, machine learning engineers. There will be a significant shift of how things will be. Because I think for the first time in history, knowledge is far, far, far more accessible. So what it means is things will evolve. Everyone can now be a software engineer or can do code. Some of the low level repeatable tasks can be automated, and that's expected with such massive shift in technology. What it means is jobs will also evolve, and the way I see it is in tech is we will be more transitioning from being a builder to being an architect, right? Of being able to solve a problem or being able to build an app, and AI or agents will be what will be part of our team. So that's how I see it. Of course, it's you know every one of us is asking whether our jobs will be impacted. And you've seen that in the news that there's already significant impact or layoffs across the globe in the tech industry or even in other industries. There's more evolution that will happen going forward.
One thing I pick up in there is, the shift from being builders to more of like architects or orchestrators, right?
Yes.
Wow, this is going to be completely, I'd say, different, especially from a development standpoint, because sometimes data engineers, developers, right, we're too focused on the code, on how can I modify this piece to achieve this one, but we're not looking more of it on the bigger picture, right? On how all of these things operate from from top to down layer. What do you think is the biggest misconception that tech professional have about AI and their own job security?
For me, is uh, it will be purely job losses. I know that like right now we are undergoing that, that particular phase. It's valid that everyone will be anxious, including, myself and ourselves about that because it's a change. But similar to previous changes historically as well, uh, jobs evolve.
Do you know any roles that are emerging right now? What are the like hot roles that you think is really trending or emerging right now?
AI engineering is one.
AI
Yeah.
engineering. Okay.
Yes. AI engineering is more of how you will orchestrate, you know, different AI models, build an agent, and how will each of those agents collaborate together, and put a human in the loop. So it's more of an orchestrator, rather than a hardcore software developer that we used to know. Think about LLMs as more of like tools. Right? The humans will still find a way to make the most out of those tools, and you need, what we call like AI engineers right now, and even data engineers or machine learning engineers to piece all of those together and come up with a solution that will deliver an outcome. Say, for example, how will you automate, say, marketing campaigns?
Just to build on what Emil had said, what what I'm also seeing in the industry and not just in the Philippines, it's that there's less and less demand on task-based roles. Like somebody, an admin assistant, for example, or somebody to take notes during a meeting, or somebody to just make a Gantt chart, or really task-based execution roles, or somebody there to make a report that will take them a week to do. There's less and less jobs to manage an Excel sheet and generate a report, but there's more and more jobs to get more things done in a week rather than before. What do I mean by that? Like for example, the startup that I'm working with right now, we need more people who know how to use AI tools that are easily available to get work done faster. And what we're seeing, and I've been in the startup space for 10 years, what we've been able to do is to compress the time it takes from 0 to 1 with less people. So that means that there's higher productivity. So it's not less time to do things, but you have more things done in 8 hours than it would have taken you, for example, 5, 10 years ago, that it would have taken you a week or a month or 3 months. Now the work is compressing, the work is intensifying, the competition is actually increasing. But at the same time, the work demand for the person is we need to hire people who know how to use these tools, who know how to orchestrate, even at the simplest level. Like, for example, if you're a virtual assistant, just knowing how to use large language models properly, not just copying and pasting. Definitely, there's no demand for sloppy work out there. Like, people who just submit ChatGPT generated things are gonna get fired for sure. People who use ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini and copy paste it and send it to their boss, you guys are gonna get fired. Please change now. But people who know how to communicate how they were able to get to an output and elevate the work with AI will get promoted, will get equity, will get more opportunities for them when they know how to use all of these tools in order to generate an outcome. Right. Last example I wanted to share there, like for example, now Google Gemini just launched like other features in the Google Suite that would allow us to create tutorial videos. We were literally able to save thousands of dollars just by generating tutorial videos within a day with Google. So we need more people who know how to utilize the easily accessible consumer grade level tools and elevate the work and get more things done in a week than before. That's the demand I'm seeing, at least from the entry level perspective.
AI as a technology or any other technology, the goal is always productivity, right? I think throughout the evolution of humans, that's always been the case. I think to put an analogy on that, before the way we travel, is based on horse-drawn carriage, right? It takes sometimes days or months to do it, and then cars get invented, and then it then further compresses the travel time, and then planes got invented, and then further compresses time. So I like the way you phrase it, how you get from 0 to 1 in a much more compressed time. It's really more on how you build uh, and embrace those new technology, and also kind of setting aside, an anxiety, with those new technology.
What do you think are the skills that are needed for both technical and non-technical data engineers that are becoming more and more important now?
The skills that any of the tech professional, not just data engineers or even, data scientists needs right now is how they can make themselves more productive with AI tools to be able to deliver more outcome and deliver more value to what they're doing. AI and those productivity tools can be your thought partner, right? In conjunction with your real teammates, it gives you perspective that you haven't thought of. It gives you ways and tricks that will make your life easy. Second one is, how are you able to communicate the insights that you get out of your data? That's the storytelling part. So I think those are the two skills that I can think of. One is, embracing the AI, and the other one is storytelling.
Yeah. So from a data, if I am a data engineer right now, I need better storytelling and I need to be able to be more productive with the existing AI tools that are available here. Now, if I'm not a data engineer, if I don't have a data background, and this is like such a problem in the industry that I'm seeing. So many people want to go the next level of AI. They've used ChatGPT, they've used Claude, they've used Gemini, they're addicted to AI, but they don't know how to get to the next level because they don't have a data discipline. What's your best advice for business people, non-technical people who want to level up with their AI game, but seems to be that they don't want to invest the time to build a data discipline?
I think first acknowledging that they need, actually every one of us needs to be data driven, because the world is, running on data. Second one is, it will be, I would suggest or, encourage, business leaders to look into how, the best in class organizations across the globe do or perform their data discipline. How does a good or great look like in a data driven organization? Also think on, or actually leverage the tools and use the tools to teach you how to be more data driven. So, because right now it's very accessible, knowledge is very accessible. So it's a lot easier to learn, new things to be able to come up with a specific solution.
What I'm understanding in this entire conversation is that definitely the job market is transforming, right? We're going from horse-drawn carriage to hyperspeed, traveling at the speed of AI. The job market is definitely transforming. The economy is transforming. We're kind of in a period of evolution. What do you think would separate professionals who are just merely surviving to actually thriving? What do you think will allow people to thrive in this age of AI?
Think of systems, like system architecture or design thinking. How do you orchestrate and piece components together? I think that will be one of the main roles that we will do as we shift from, being a coding heavy workforce to being architecture or orchestration heavy workforce. Second is, how do you frame a problem? Are we solving the right problem? I think people who leverage and will leverage AI to be able to help their company or, the startup that they're building or their customers be more productive will win. And then third is AI literacy, being able to embrace AI, being able to adopt to new tools and features, and make the most out of it.
just trying to process what you guys have mentioned earlier, but I think it boils down into two things for me. It's you mentioned AI literacy, and human AI collaboration, right? So you mentioned about being able to work with AI and be productive on your work, and I think the skill is not just knowing AI, but being able to work with AI and be more productive, like building tools, right? Building something out of that AI literacy that you know AI and being able to collaborate with AI, like from a data engineering standpoint, right? It's not enough now that you know how to write the code, but you should know how to work with AI agents. Sometimes I think about it, it's a little bit black box right now, right? It's kind of weird because it's black box, and data engineers were not used to that, right? They're used to like really looking at the code. Oh, what is this? The join and everything. But now you gotta get used to using this tool, a little bit black box, but it can make you productive and maybe understand, what's the criteria of this tool, how is this tool working and all those stuff. So those skills, I think that will matter, especially the human AI collaboration skills. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I like that you made a point about, black box. Because part of AI literacy is to also have the critical thinking to acknowledge whether AI's response is factually right or just partially factually right or not right at all. So like putting in, being able to make that call and have those judgment is also important because
Yeah.
fully trusting AI, especially in critical decisions, will be detrimental.
Yeah, for sure. And to me, it's like adaptability and a letting go of stubbornness. There's a lot of people who still kind of are clinging on to their their pre-existing bias of what work should be, of how a job should be. Let it go. Let it go, move on, adapt. Because we're already in the phase of adapt or die. If you don't adapt to the next phase of this economy, we have no choice because there are forces beyond our control that it's not our choice whether AI proceeds or not, right? But what we do say is where we have a say is how it proceeds and how we will participate in that. So not participating is not an option, I think. Adaptability is going to be, to me, my number one thing is adaptability and letting go of those pre-existing biases that if we graduated college 20 years ago and we still want to use all of that knowledge now and we're going to be stubborn and not changing and not learning, oh my god, I don't know if there's a future for people like that.
In line with that one, I wanted to share this data which around Gen Z. 68% of young professionals are anxious about AI automation, right? And not just AI automation, the societal impacts of AI, right? Because we know that there's really some implications, right? Technology. So they're anxious about it. But 58% of them use the tools 3 to 4 times a week. And it's been increasing and increasing, meaning you're anxious about this tool, but you're kind of forced to use it. And it's kind of sad reality in a way because, I mean, like, I don't, if they have a choice, they feel like if I have a choice, I really not going to use this one. But it's just that I have to use this. Otherwise, my work, right? It's now going to revolve around AI. If I don't use it, I'm going to be left behind, definitely. So, like what you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of things that's not in our control, but, you know, the adaptability, right? You have to adapt and think critically, not just fully using this, I guess, blindly, right? But thinking, what's the benefit, what's the pros and cons, and all those things. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of young people they don't like using AI. I mean, if they have a choice, but now they feel like they don't have a choice. How do you stay relevant, Emil, yourself? What do you do on your own learning, upskilling? What does your own learning or upskilling look like right now?
I think for me, the first thing I always do is try the tools, learn, fail, make errors. Uh, for example, just do experiments and use every opportunity within your work or even outside work to use those tools, like writing an email or enhancing an existing email. From there, it will spark, curiosity. What if I do this? What if I do that? And then use that and apply that to your day to day. Let's say, for example, recently they've introduced cloud call work and how you'd be able to use that, to increase your productivity. Of course, on the side, it makes me think as well, like, oh, it's if these AI tools can do this, what else can I do? Then your priority will shift it to something that AI cannot do, which is the more human side of things, which is talking to the client, influencing them, something that is not easy to be replaced by AI.
I love the experimentation. So I think you hit the word there. You're not really gonna learn AI until you get your hands dirty around it, until you try, right? Even you're the best, I guess, computer scientist who knows all the theories, but if you don't try it yourself, get hands-on experience, you're not gonna learn it.
I was just talking to like a group of folks, a group of business owners in this, that you should also learn how to fail and learn how to fail as a team. Because failing and making mistakes in a technology and engineering perspective, this is a normal process to us. Like, people make mistakes, we need to roll it back, right? So when there's error in the code, we have to debug it. So failure is a normal part of the technology process because codes have errors, and when there's an error, we have to fix it, we have to bug fix it, we have to test it, right? If we launch something to production that there is an error, we have to roll it back. Marketing teams, sales teams, and customer service teams, they're not always used to failure or making mistakes, especially because they're customer facing. But learning how to fail as a team and experimenting as a team, and failing is a part of experimentation. And to do that intelligently is, I think, very, very, it's a skill.
Agree.
Emil, in your experience, how has the process of hiring for technical roles have changed over the past few years? Like, what do we need to do in order to impress the hiring manager?
From my experience pre AI, when we're hiring, we're really looking into resumes deeply, and make a judgment call from there whether the person is going to proceed with an actual interview. Second is more emphasis on technical skills before, like really deep technical skills. Compared to where we are right now, our resumes can be written by AI. I think it's or can be enhanced by AI. I need to put it in a better context. Every organization will actually have HR or recruitment will be struggling to filter in resumes. I think one, tailor your resume in such a way that it will tell your impact at least, and also be compliant with the recent form. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar about ATS formatting in resume, because a lot of those resumes are going through some recruitment system that uses keyword matching and whatnot. Uh, but of course, don't misrepresent yourself when you do that. You just don't put the job spec and then make it write me the resume that fits to this job spec. It should fit your experience. That then will help elevate your profile. Second is use your network. All right, use your friends to be able to work with AI. AI organizations or new organizations. And third is build your portfolio. I think now more than ever, like the portfolio of your thought leadership, how you present yourself, how you make yourself visible in the community also helps.
I would always tell people, and this is what I also do, build a brag book.
Mm.
Make sure to don't take company knowledge, right? Don't take proprietary company knowledge, but be able to express what you've done in your job every year that would add to your career value. So I have a Google Doc of all my projects and what these projects did to the business. And that's kind of like my brag book to make sure that, because that's my career leverage, right? That is the deposit that I have for my career bank account. My biggest regret is not actively building my website and career portfolio at the start of my career. Imagine that you're 15, 20 years into your career and then you're gonna try to look back and all the things that you've done. It's so hard. It's so hard to like remember that project I did from 2002, that project I did from this time. Save it all. Don't lose it. Have like one Bible around it and try to build your portfolio there because that's your career leverage, that's your career capital. And definitely more and more I'm seeing that portfolios are being asked. Resumes are not enough. Portfolios are being asked, and being present in social media strategically as a professional. Like, don't be, I mean, to folks who like dancing on TikTok, no judgment there, right? But you could also use these social media platforms to be discovered by hiring managers, right? To be able to network. So being able to use social media strategically as a full human being, part personal, part professional, is I think like a smart move for people because it is becoming more hyper competitive.
Just going back, Emil. So, do you guys agree? It looks like, based on the observations, is the hiring process itself will change in a way that it will be there's going to be a lot of AI as well involved, meaning, you know, browsing through the resumes, it's going to be AI. That's why it's important for you to know how this system kind of work, right?
A lot of organizations are actually using or leveraging that. It's both a win in productivity, but also a headache to the recruitment team because there's so many, like, sometimes the resume is too good to be true that everyone passes through, and then they realize that most of it, or some of it, are bluff. And one thing that will possibly change as well is going back to more in-person interviews because it makes it more genuine. It actually is more genuine. Sometimes, I think there was some AI bot that's on your side. It's gonna be answering on your behalf.
There's one AI here and then there's a person here.
Yes, especially on like critical jobs. Do you really want the person coming in to just be using AI purely without thinking on what they're actually solving for? Yeah.
Gotcha. So just to summarize, right? So basically, it's going to be noisy, right? Now, in the hiring world, there's a lot of automation, but at the same time, there's a lot of resumes that's coming in. I think this is very important for viewers to be able to to tell your impact, and show your impact, and not just your skills. Right? We talked about earlier, not just your degree, but really what you've built, right?
Just to add that because the systems of hiring are increasingly being automated, how a person can differentiate themselves is through networking and community building. Because a human referral will always be a stronger candidate than a cold application. So I'd say that, go against the tide. And when everybody's kind of trying to build their digital resume, try to network because that's gonna be your power in this AI economy because a lot of people are using AI to cheat. And HRs know that, hiring managers know that, right? When somebody perfects the interview, but then when they get to work, they don't know anything.
According to LinkedIn, I think employees who were referred by someone are 4 times more likely to be hired. Right? When I moved here in the U.S., I actually was referred by a friend, and then probably 80% of my network got their job through referrals too. So it's proven. But I'm gonna just do a contrarian mindset here, right? If I'm someone who doesn't love networking, isn't that in the Philippines a palakasan system? If you look at it, right? Parang, why? You have advantage because you know someone in there. It's like the palakasan system in the Philippines. Sometimes it could get too too much on that side. You'll be like, what's
Oh my god, that's a bomb drop. That's you just like a bomb drop there. But you know what? Good or bad, the palakasan system, it's a system. It exists. We have to acknowledge that it exists. And being human beings, Do you trust somebody that you know or somebody that you don't know?
True. Because if I'm the hiring manager, I'll be more confident to hire this if someone is vetting on this that, yeah, hey, you know this, you know how this person works, right? You know what are the strengths and all those things. Like referral. Referral, not, I guess the referral here is not just the name, but how you work, right? What are your strengths? You know, what can you contribute? Those kind of referral.
Yeah. And I think those referrals are more of a, you can think about it as like foot in the door. Every candidate will still go through the same process. And then from there, the actual, you know, measurement of competency, because they're gonna meet different people and each people will have to vet. I agree with Mooch. It's an actual system. Even in here Australia, we call it like sponsorship. Right, you need to have find your sponsors and mentors who's gonna guide and provide you doors and opportunities that you can leverage.
That's a good point, Emil, that you have to go through still the interview process, the same process that other people are going into, right? I think it's palakasan if you get in, you didn't go to the interview, diretso na, di ba?
Yes, I think what palakasan means is you're handed a silver platter without even like other people vetting against your skills.
If it's purely just relying on who you know and not what you know or what you can bring to the table, I think that's a negative thing. But also, if we live in a pure meritocracy where everyone is equally intelligent, then who would you trust? Somebody that you know is merit-based deserving. If everybody was merit-based smart, merit-based deserving, who would you trust in that instance? Somebody you know or somebody who you don't know? I think that's the positive side of the referral, or I wouldn't even call it palakasan system, but kind of like being networking. I think that's the positive example of networking, not necessarily getting the job because you don't deserve it and solely because of the relationship, but being able to get the job because you deserve it, you have the qualifications for it, you can deliver on it, you're a person who people want to work with, and you have people know you and trust you.
So it's additional data point, right? From for to that person that
Yep.
you will get as a hiring manager. Cool. So before we go to the next and last segment, basically I just wanted to summarize here based on what you guys have said, right? Our practical advice for job seekers basically nowadays is highlight your skills and show proof of work, right? Tell your impact. I mean, skills is not enough to you have to
Mm.
have a story. Oh, this is why Emil mentioned about storytelling, the importance of storytelling. You have to have a story on how did you use those skills to build something. And now you have to show your portfolio. And then the last one there is network, really the importance of networking. I just wanted to mention to our viewers, right, Emil, I know you have tech blogs too, right? You've written some tech blogs, and this is one way of showing your work, your portfolio, and its experience, really your expertise in the field. I'm gonna put on the link here. If you guys want to read Emil's tech blogs in Medium and in Substack, this is one way of doing it.
Okay, guys, seat belt. This is the most exciting part of the conversation. Seat belt, and please stay with us. But prepare your noses as we enter the nosebleed section. Now we want to understand what is graph technology and why it matters in the ever-changing AI world. So, Emil, can you take us through? Can you explain to us what is graph technology?
I'm sure we're all familiar with the overseas Filipino workers as a biculture. To give a general audience a more context about that, so imagine someone in the Philippines wants salted egg chips from Singapore. Not naming the actual brand, but salted egg chips before they are actually available in the Philippines. Then someone says, "Hey, wait, my cousin works in Singapore. I can probably ask him to buy you salted egg chips. How many do you want?" And then another person would say, "Actually, my friend is also flying home next week. Do you want me to ask him to buy you a few, in the airport?" And then suddenly you have this chain of someone who knows someone who knows another someone who can bring the chips. That's basically how graph database work. It follows through the chain of connections and how you be able to get from one destination to another because everything is based on on network or social connection. How does it differ from traditional way of doing data analysis? The traditional way of doing data analysis is spreadsheet, Excel, right? You have rows, columns. Whilst Excel is good in doing some, transactional analysis like averages, median, for example. What if you want to trace a money flow in the case of a fraud, for example, a fraud problem? Because a fraud is you want to trace the money flow and how it it reaches between sender and receiver. It's a lot easier if you represent their data in the form of a network, in this case, a graph, because you have the full visibility of chain of connections.
You mentioned about relationships, right? So basically, is this like a database platform that kind of accepts data with relationships already, like with joins pre-made, compared to a traditional SQL database where you raw data, right? Columns, tables, don't have relationships yet, and you're going to build the relationships on top of that. So, but Graph is like a database platform that accepts relationships in the raw data.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you load your data into a graph, you already have those pre-made connections stored in the database. So you can see how, for example, I'm connected to Luigi, Luigi connected to Muchi, Muchi connected to to other people, because that's already baked to the database. In comparison, say with Excel or with spreadsheet or databases, one, you need to do joins and know how to join. Uh, because you need to think about how to join those tables together. Or in the case of spreadsheet, how will you VLOOK up one sheet from another sheet, right? That's not hard coded or baked into the actual structure of the data. So that's how I would think about graph. Another way to think about it is our brain. You have neurons connected by synapses. uh Relational databases say they only have neurons but they don't have synapses, whereas graph have those connections together.
So help me understand it for my aunties and uncles and my mom and dad who's going to be listening to this podcast. If there's an Excel sheet that's two-dimensional, you have rows and columns. A graph technology is kind of three-dimensional or four-dimensional
Yes, it's
or
very
multi-dimensional.
multidimensional. Yes. Yes, like hey, for
So
example, in the case of aunties and your uncles, if they want to make chismes from one end of the town to another, you need to know the person who knows this person, who knows another person, and knows another person. It's a social. It's very close to like a social network. The likes of LinkedIn or Facebook has underlying graph databases.
so it's kind of like a mesh network or a mesh structure that there's like multi relationships there and there's a whole network there, kind of like social media or something like that.
Yes, because you can see the holistic view of, let's say, a person, right? Where is he connected to? What's his interests are? Where does he usually go? It's a
Yeah.
it's a very multidimensional structure.
How is it different from vector databases, Emil? Because in AI, for example, right, we always talk about vector databases, but how is that different?
How can I simplify the vector database? Yeah. So
But that's two different things, basically.
yes, those are two different things.
Yep.
Vector database, or actually, if you think about, let's say, any document, say for example, an insurance policy, you can load the insurance policy in a vector database. So how does it look like? You basically get each paragraph or each sentences and then convert them into a mathematical form. I think to put it simply, like into a form of a vector, and then you store it. When someone asks the question, "What's my coverage?" Say, for example, uh, for outpatient services, you ask that question, you give, and then that particular question is translated back into a vector or a mathematical form, and then you do a search, basically a similarity search, like which is the closest representation of that in the vector database, and then you get the answer. So that's a vector database. In a graph, you're not only extracting those paragraphs in silos, you're connecting those paragraphs together to form a digital representation of a document. Let's say an insurance policy is chapter 1 to chapter 10, and then within each of those chapters, you have different sections. And then within each of those sections, you have different paragraphs, tables, or images. So it's basically creating a hierarchy. So you help AI to give you actually give more context to AI on not just the immediate relevant information, but other information that will help contextualize the answer.
For someone who wants to specialize or become familiar with this technology, where do you recommend them to start? What should they read? What should they absorb? Where should they take their courses? How and where? Where would they even start?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are actually a lot of materials now that's available. Within, for example, my company, we do have like free tutorials or documentation and certifications as well. Apart from that, there's a lot of blogs as well, and content that's done by different developers across the globe on how they use graph database to be able to solve a problem. And then the second aspect is how you be able to learn uh, graph based on your existing skill set. If you're well versed, for example, in SQL or in data modeling, you already have a head start because you understand how data are represented and how you retrieve or get those information from the database. And then it's more familiarizing yourself with, the format or the syntax or how to read the code, which is a lot easier right now with all of those LLM tools. Like, even the LLM tools can guide you on how to read it and even provide suggestions as well.
How big is this graph technology industry and how unexplored is it? Is it exciting? Is it going up, going down? What's your take on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity right now, especially with uh, generative AI or AI. There are already proven patterns wherein LLMs, regardless of which LLM plus graph, can work well together. The analogy that we put around this is, the left and the right side of the brain. You think about the right brain as the LLM, the more creative side, how you summarize information, how you distill and communicate that information. The left part of the brain is the logic. How do you piece those information together in the form of a network? And that network gives you context because it gives you not just the data point, but the context between each of those data points. By providing that, you're actually contextualizing it more to the large language model. It's a lot easier. The newer use cases that we have are really focusing on that, like AI plus graph, because those pairs well together as a tech stack or as a pattern.
That's interesting because context is very important for AI, right? It's just a good combo, context with graph and AI. Cool. All right. Before we end this one, any message to our audience, tech professionals, with all the conversations that we had today and the previous episode? Any final piece of advice?
One, stay curious. Be curious in learning new technology. Also, if you're customer facing, be curious with your customers, and you're gonna learn out a lot out of that. And then second is growth mindset on things. Leverage what you have, leverage the environment that you have, and make the most out of it. And third is, there's significant value in not just investing yourself in technical skills, but most importantly, the soft skills, like how you communicate, how you tell a story. I think that will give you magnitude of returns throughout your career.
Those are golden advice, Emil. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat for not just for the time, but for your generosity to share these knowledge, your expertise and wisdom in this space. It's an honor for us to spotlight someone like you. I think these are the kind of voices that we need, in tech, in the Filipino tech community.
No worries. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much as well for giving me the opportunity as well to share my experience to the audience.
So cool. All right. See you guys in the next